Hey everybody, welcome back. We're the Mentors. I'm Jamie. I'm here with my buddy Gabe. Gabe, how you doing, buddy?
I'm very good. Want to wish everyone a happy secular New Year. What is that?
Yeah.
This is Rosh January. Not
Yeah, it's
particularly
new.
relevant to the lunar calendar, but to all of those who honor the Caesarean Gregorian calendar. Happy New Year to you.
Sure. Happy New Year. Welcome. Excited to be back for 2024. Lots of fun Jewish sports stories. I think we could call this season 5 of the Menschwarmers.
Season 5.
Is that fair? We're gonna be coming up on our 5th anniversary soon.
Yeah.
Which seems ridiculous.
It does.
These last 5 years have just sort of
I would have
into
hoped
mush.
we would be living high on the hog by now, but we're extremely thankful for all of our listeners, and we want to keep growing with you. So please tell your friends about this show.
We should do some 5-year retrospective in a few months when we actually hit that anniversary.
Yeah, a clip show
because I think
of the most awkward Yiddish jokes I've told.
That's right. That sounds like terror for our producer Michael, but maybe we'll get him to do it. But Gabe, I guess what's been going on since last we spoke is I think there's something we need to discuss, which is tunneling a sport? Is extreme tunnel making a sport? Is this the newest Jewish sport?
It might be. Digging? This is somewhat of a raw take, but it's a group of messianic unmarried men who might just need something to do. The Grand Rebbes might have just said, "Oh, let's give these boys a shovel."
Yeah, that's right. I think it's like these guys just absolutely needed a basketball, they just or like something to keep them occupied. I think that's exactly it. Like I can't remember where it's from, but I remember reading somebody who was Catholic who wrote about like going to Catholic school as a teenager. And like every time they had impure thoughts, they were told to just like go outside and play basketball instead. Yeah. And I feel like that's like the inclination for these Chabadniks. Like every time you want to start digging a tunnel to fulfill the Rebbe's wishes in your mind, just go play basketball instead. Like Absolutely. I know it's cold out. Like fine, like do something else, like handball.
I think
like there are sports that are indoors.
If tunnel digging was a sport, then the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is getting a whole new side to it.
Yeah,
a sports competition.
I saw a tweet I think you sent to me, which was from a musician, Dan Lehner, who said that video of a Hasidic guy emerging from a sidewalk grate and running off is both one of the funniest things I've ever seen and something I trust a very small group of people to riff on safely.
Yes.
I think that's been borne out the last few days because this has gotten like if you look at anything about it now, it's just like the same sort of nut job, blood libelous conspiracy theories that you see about anything to do with Jews. And like a few and Jews who like online Jews who are like having a good time but like
who think this is hilarious. We're getting a little serious here, but I feel that sometimes like secular Jews treat Chabadniks sort of like we think non-Jews treat us.
Right.
Like they are the Ostjuden.
Right. They are the weirdos. The other. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm not.
I have never scurried out of.
Going to pretend to be an expert or anything like this, but like, yeah, anyways, it's high times in novelty tunnel digging. But let's move on to some real sports. I mean, it's been the college football playoffs, NFL playoffs. Not a lot going on that's had to do with Jews, I think. In the last few weeks, but there's been other stuff going on. There was
unfortunately the season of one of our favorite Jewish sports stories of the year. Jake Retzlaff, the BYU quarterback, has ended.
Right.
I think this was his last year of eligibility.
Yeah.
So
no, I think he'll be back next year.
He'll be back next year, going up against. Yeah. Okay, I see this now. 7-year senior Jerry Bowen on.
BYU's got has always been good for having 27-year-old seniors on the team who've done a mission.
Yes, right. They come back.
But I do want to say off the top, it is hockey season. We have a lot of hockey to talk about, and we have an interview coming up at the end of this podcast or in the second half of the podcast that I want to talk about, which is with Kaleigh Fratkin. Kaleigh is a professional hockey player who's played for years in the
second Jewish Vancouverite professional hockey player we've had on this podcast.
Right, and in just as many years. And she is on the professional women's hockey league team in Boston, which is
their name,
I guess, aptly, but uncreatively named the PWHL Boston. But they've just gotten
They're
on to
working
off
on
to a
the
start. They
branding.
started,
They have at least one Jewish brain trying to figure out the marketing of that project. Being Kaleigh. So we're gonna get on the. It was a great interview. She talks a lot about her boobie's view of hockey vis-a-vis law school. What it was like growing up and sort of how the women's game has evolved, and she's been a part of it for a long time. Something you want to mention. We chatted about it off. We don't get up. We get a lot of questions about Dave Schultz, who's got the penalty minute record for the NHL. He is not Jewish.
Right, not Jewish.
But Kaleigh Fratkin does have the PWHA, the Professional Women's Hockey League, career penalty minute record.
Sure.
So, we have some sandpapery Jews in hockey. And
not to mention another Bostonite, the greatest fictional goon of all time, Doug Glad.
Doug Glad, that's true.
From Jay Baruchel's Goon.
But I thought he's a Haligonian. Jewish. He's a Bostonite in real life. But he's a
No. He in the movie he's in Boston and he gets called up to play for the Halifax minor league team.
Gotcha.
But he's supposed to be from Boston.
Okay.
And he's adopted by a Jewish family.
You mean the Iron Jew?
That's why he's called Doug
as they call him in the movie.
And also goes up against Liev Schreiber,
right?
A real Jew
playing a non-Jew,
playing a non-Jewish good. Anyways, it's a very nice interview with Kaleigh. Very nice of her to join us. Busy time right now for her in the PWHL. And we wish her lots of luck and luck to the league. I think it's exciting to people who know more about hockey than I do and more about women's professional hockey seem to be very excited about this as an undertaking and its potential to become a sort of breakthrough as a women's sports league.
So when you're watching, I guess this show will probably come out on Thursday. The next Boston game is on Saturday the 11th, and I think they have games roughly twice a week after that. So if you're in Canada, you can watch I think all of them on TSN Plus, which is amazing that they're all telegraphed. And if you haven't watched any of the games, the production is fantastic. Like it looks like an NHL game, which is sort of a first. If you've watched women's hockey in the past, it's you're like got one camera that is just like there, sort of like a hand cam in the audience, but now it's got full production. It is really, really cool. And they play at UMass Lowell, which is pretty set up for a big production. UMass Lowell is a very good college hockey team. It's really exciting to see.
Yeah. So in other Jewish hockey news, we should talk about the World Juniors, which just ended, and the American team came away with gold. And one of their goals in the final game was scored by I think it's Zeev. I've only seen it pronounced as Zeev, but it might be Zeev. But Zeev Boyum, who's a big prospect.
Is it Boyum or Boum? I mean, there's a lot of different ways.
He's an Israeli American guy. He is the younger brother of Shai Boyum, who was I think picked in the late first round or early second round a couple years ago.
Yep. He's currently plays for University of Denver.
Right.
Generally now, it's a good school, great hockey school. Shai is also a Denver one. Their mother was an Israeli basketball player. And he is,
and they grew up in California, which seems crazy, but I guess that there's an increasing amount of guys coming out of California playing hockey at a high level.
Absolutely.
I mean, obviously it's a huge state, but I don't think of there being like that many rinks that are open all year round. But so obviously there are.
My dad, he's now a young retiree, I suppose. He's or a retiree one way or another. And he noticed that there are two NHL players from Phoenix, Arizona in the league, and both of them play for Toronto, which is a really good really convenient snowbird program. If only they played for Calgary, that would be even better, judging by the demographics in Phoenix.
Yeah, no. So it's exciting to see him come up. I think he's someone to keep an eye on. He's Jewish, his Israeli parents, and playing for Team USA, the juniors. This is a real. The juniors are always a real opportunity for people to shine and show their worth, and it can increase their prospects as a potential draft pick. So
Absolutely.
Exciting to see him, and we'll see how he goes. And
if
in the coming
hopefully we'll see what
draft.
happens in the draft this year. Shai was drafted by the Red Wings in the second round. With any luck, we'll get another huge hockey market, maybe even Toronto, that picks Zev. He could go to Edmonton and play with
Sure.
Hyman. He's unlikely to be a really high lottery pick, but that just means any team in the league can find this diamond in the rough. He isn't going to be sent to a bad team immediately, so I'm all for it.
Right. Speaking of Zach Hyman, we should say that there is a ongoing campaign right now to get Hyman voted into
Where
the
is he? He's
All-Star
pretty
game.
close, isn't he?
Yeah, so I saw the last stats as of Wednesday night from the NHL. I believe had him in 10th in the fan voting, but pretty close to the guys who are above him.
And the cutoff is 8. There's 8 more spots.
So Artemi Panarin, who's also of Jewish origin, at least a Russian guy, is in 8th right now, and there's a few skaters ahead of him. I mean, again, I don't know how this would all work out, and if there's people who are injured or something like that, reserves.
It could be. I think they would usually go down, or it might be a coach's choice.
Exactly.
Hyman is sort of a coach's dream. In the NHL, Mac Babcock once said it. I wish I had 23 Zach Hymans and we'd win the Stanley Cup. So I think he's to get an All-Star nod, especially back in Toronto. The game's in Toronto, so it was hometown, and is the place he played for the first 6 or 7 years of his career. Would be pretty exciting.
For sure. I mean, Panarin, I think, is actually going to miss the game. So even if he is voted in, just because I think his wife's giving birth, from what I read. So get your tweets out. I mean, if you're still on Twitter, there's that's the way to do it. I don't know if there's any other way to vote. Maybe request a paper ballot. They have to let you vote for Zach Hyman. Do not leave the line.
If you are in line,
the NHL,
they have to let you
All-Star voting. Exactly. So get in line now. And if you're in Toronto, I mean, that great opportunity to go see Zach Hyman.
Absolutely, it'd be very, very cool.
After he's been away for a couple years.
And who knows? Maybe they'll find a skills competition you can be in part of as well, because there's the skills competition is sort of a big tournament. He's not in it as of right now. But Quinn Hughes is likely to be, which is pretty exciting. Quinn Hughes, we're looking at fastest skater, hardest shot, stick handling, one-timers, and Quinn Hughes taking sort of the next step into one of the top 5 or 10 players of the league. It's his second All-Star appearance. He's already been named to the team, as is his brother Jack. I think we can expect to see a whole lot of Quinn Hughes over the All-Star weekend. Sure. He's the captain of the surprise team of the year this year. He is leading.
The Nucks are really knucking.
Yeah, they really are. And he is, it's him. The number one defenseman is the captain of a team that's taken the next level sort of right when he has. I personally credit the Jewish guy for being the X factor in that hockey team.
You see, he's like the Oppenheimer for the Canucks.
That's right.
Is how you're saying that.
He is the Oppenheimer. And then who would be the Barbie? Is his brother the Barbie? The two of them are Barbenheimer. The New Jersey Devils are also cooking. They're not quite at the same level, but they're cooking.
Sure. This metaphor is somewhat tortured, but we'll go with it. Moving on from professional hockey, we want to talk a little bit about something that's been going on or is developing in international amateur hockey, which is that there's just a recently published news alert from the IWHF that governs international hockey.
I'm going to say Swiss organization IIHF, and I'll let that one simmer.
So I'll just read verbatim what it says in the press release. After careful consideration, the IIHF Council has decided that due to concerns over the safety and security of all participants in the championships, Israel will not participate in IIHF competitions for the time being. There's further, they go on to say they can't assure the safety and well-being of all participants, including Israeli participants. And they made this decision. I mean, this is still something that's breaking. I mean, I guess there were going to be some different competitions this spring and summer that this is going to affect or at least at a minimum. I guess the women's worlds and I think the U18 men's worlds
and likely
would have been affected.
In the men's worlds that happen every May, there's like tiers, and I think the Israeli national team is in either tier 2 or 3. Should that happen, this summer as well?
Yeah, but now it sounds like it won't be participating. So I should just say that we don't know much about this. I would say that I can say that sources have told the CJN that they weren't particularly happy about it, or the Israeli hockey executives or people involved in that. I'm hoping that we'll have more on this, either from us or more likely from Ellen Besner or somebody else at the CJN. So keep an eye out for that and see if there's further information about this, because it's really just coming out now. And I haven't seen much commentary about it, but it's interesting. I mean, we certainly talked to people who have been instrumental in making hockey a thing in Israel, and they're very, very proud of how far the country has come as a as a hockey playing place altogether. So
Absolutely.
this is not
The
this is
tournament,
not a welcome thing.
the tournament is in Czechia. Czechia?
Right.
Because, yeah, it's in Prague and Ostrava.
Czechia, yeah.
Czechia. This year, which, like, following global anti-Semitic news, as,
Sure.
one doesn't seem that Czechia is a particularly bad place for Jewish people right now. I mean, obviously, it's got sort of a big history, but, like, I'm not. I don't know. It's a real shame, that the IIHF has decided to do this. At least as far as we can tell, as we say, sources told the CJ, and it's unconfirmed, without, full agreement of the Israeli national team, who, as far as we can tell, was interested in playing.
Yeah, so we'll have to keep an eye on that and see what progresses or what we hear from the different people involved. But it's disappointing.
It is. And
just one more thing.
Games were in. Some of the games are supposed to be in Ostrava. I don't know if you have been, but it is the home of the Global Zither Museum.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
One more thing I wanted to mention before we get to our interview is that there was just a recent announcement that there's going to be a Netflix show about 5 different basketball players.
Oh.
In the NBA, like a behind the scenes type show, like they did. They did a quarterback show last year.
And are any
one of the people who was selected
by any chance Jewish?
Well, one of them might be. Still undecided if he is converted yet, but not he is undecided, but we haven't heard any update on this since last offseason. But Domantas Sabonis, the Kings star, who last we heard was converting, is married to a Jewish woman, raising his kids Jewish, is going to be one of the athletes featured. So maybe they'll touch on that. I wouldn't be like, given the way those different sports documentaries have done, like they've done a little
the
bit
families
of
usually. I bet we would meet Shoshana. I think we were going to meet Shoshana, his wife.
Yeah. So I don't know when that's happening. I would assume that if they just announce that they're the people in it, they haven't filmed the series yet, but I don't know. So hopefully that comes out, I don't know, next spring, next fall. I would imagine that they're probably filming it now at the playoffs and off season maybe, and then with the debut to be scheduled with the next NBA season starting. It's sort of funny reading press releases for movies or television where it's like, oh, great, when's that going to happen? 4 years from now? Like, great. I wrote something about the Bradley Cooper movie Maestro that just came out. Like, I wrote something about it when there were photos that were released about it, and I looked when that was, and it was in May 2022. So that was like a year and a half before. You know what I mean? Like, these things have their own momentum.
So I will say, we as a people don't make it easy to convert. So like he might still be in the process when the show comes out, as of, if he started at least on the record in April 2023. That's when he announced it.
Right.
So, he could still be doing it if they're filming it now throughout this season. But no, it's
absolutely.
I mean, hopefully it's good for the people. We could use that right now.
Sure. So we'll have to keep an eye on that and see what comes right. But looking forward to that and hear more about it. Why don't we take a quick break, and then we'll come back with our interview with Kaleigh.
Hi, we're here with I guess her reputation precedes her, multiple-time All-Star, defensive stalwart, champion of every award and championship there is to win in hockey, Kaleigh Fratkin. Welcome to the Benchwarmers.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Kaleigh is here, a member of the Boston Pride. The Boston Pride was your previous team. Your new team is the Boston team. Do they have a name other than Boston in the new PWHL?
No, all the teams this year are going under the league name, so PWHL, and then the city that they're in, and then I think beyond this year, they're gonna then come up with their team names and logos and stuff like that.
Not to bury the lead here. I just want to say the team it's part of the new Professional Women's Hockey League, which the first games are just the last I guess when this comes out, the last few weeks. What's been going on in terms of making that happen, or how have you been involved, or what's been your side of things in terms of getting that new league underway, or being part of that new league getting underway?
Yeah, there was a lot of moving parts to it. I was set to play in the PHF for the New Jersey Riveters. So I was actually leaving the Pride after spending 6 seasons with them, and then was joining the Riveters. And, a month before training camp was supposed to start, it was the announcement of our league getting acquired by what was at the time the PWHPA, which was the association that was formed and that was working kind of in conjunction with what we were doing in our league. And it was kind of this, we were going to come together and they were going to be starting a new league. And so I was very much like all the other players that kind of were in the PHF, not really knowing what was going on. And then we went through kind of there was a draft, a free agent frenzy, and then a 6-week training camp. So the minute we kind of finished 6-week training camp, they were narrowing down rosters. So players were getting released. Players were, moving around, just entering into like kind of waivers or waiver period. And then final rosters were announced, and then we were starting to play games like a week later. So it's been wild.
So, I mean, you've been in Boston for, over a decade now, from college to other leagues, and now in the this league. Is there, when you're going through the process, was staying in Boston always your goal? Or one morning do you wake up and you're like, oh, I guess I'm moving to Minnesota? With a league, people have roots because it's a new league.
Yeah, I mean, my roots have always been in Boston, obviously, like you just said. I have kind of stayed in the New England-ish area. Like I played for Connecticut and the Riveters. But yeah, with this whole new league, it was very much, because it was going to be a full-time commitment, that if I was a free agent, I didn't get drafted. So my mindset was, I'm open to any market. If I don't get drafted, I'll have an opportunity to kind of pick what camp I want to go to. And so I figured maybe that would give me a little bit more, I had a little bit more control over where I wanted to go. But yeah, if Minnesota called me and was like, hey, we want to offer you a spot, I probably would have gone. My husband wouldn't have liked it, but I would have gone.
Is he a Boston guy as well?
He's a New England guy. He's from Connecticut. So
yeah,
but he's the same thing. He went to BU and played lacrosse there. So like he's been a Boston guy his whole life too.
And I know it's early going, but is there anything that feels different about the PWHL that's unique about it, or anything about how it's going so far that's giving a feel for what it's like compared to some of the I don't want to say attempts, because there have been successful women's professional hockey leagues, or at least ongoing ones. I guess of varying degrees of success given their relatively short longevity. There seems to be some difficulty with just keeping the product out there and all that. But is there anything that feels different about the PWHL or anything about it? I appreciate that it's early on for you guys.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely early. But a lot of heightened attention. There's a ton of publicity going around and support towards it, just on so many different levels. And I think that that's something that had been kind of difficult when you had multiple kind of leagues, or kind of doing similar things but going in different directions, working in kind of the same direction but just like kind of working alongside each other. So there was almost like people didn't really know kind of where to support or who to support, or they almost just chose not to support at the time when there was a PHF and the PWHPA. So now I feel like there's a ton of, everyone's on board and wants to support it. I think from like a hockey perspective, you're really just taking the top end of what was in the PHF and you're taking the top end of what was in the PWHPA and you're bringing it together to make the most elite. But, overall from a, professional standpoint, there's been a lot of similarities that cross over to like what I was just playing in the last 8 years. So
sure,
there's still a long way to go. Like we are not at all in a place where we can all hang our hats on and be like, hurrah, we've done it. The fight for equality in the sport definitely remains, and it's just the beginning. And it's a good starting point, but definitely a long way to go for us to all sit back, I think, and be like, okay, we've done it. I don't know if we'll ever get there. Let's just say that.
It's interesting you talk about that. Like that must be a feeling that you've experienced before in a bunch of other leagues that have gotten off the ground and have now morphed into this one. Like, is there, when do you think you will have made it? When does that hat go up?
That's a tough question. I think when we get to a place where, the working conditions are exactly where we want it to be, paychecks are where it is livable for every single person. I say livable because livable is such a, it varies from person to person. But we're in a place,
Sure.
Where the bottom end of the league, if someone's on a minimum salary, we're talking about that it's a 6-figure minimum salary. It's not a, $35,000 minimum salary. So it's a place where, everyone in the league is taken care of, and not just a small percent. And just the reality of where we're at, it's that's kind of just where we're starting and growing. And so I think that's one piece to it. But also places where you're in your own venue. Like right now we're playing games in, great venues, good facilities. You're playing in some NHL facilities. You're in some AHL facilities. We're playing at UMass Lowell, that holds 5,000 people, but and some hold, some are playing at the XL or UBS tonight. So they're playing in good facilities, but you want your own facility. Like you want a team where it's like Boston PWHL or PWHL Boston, and it's, your team name, your logo, and like, there's 20,000 seats and you're filling it. That's kind of where we want to go. There's obviously other things that, I don't want to sit here and bore you with, but just generally speaking, that's kind
I
of.
do not find it boring.
No, I don't find it boring either. I think it's, I mean, I don't want to put, this is a heavy question or a big question, but I guess the thing that I've always found interesting is, or the big question is sort of how do we get there with either women's professional hockey or any women's professional sport league? Because I think obviously there have been certain elements of women's sports that's been, if not on par with men, surpassing it in some ways. Not in terms of quality, because quality is always going to be something that's incredibly high in every sport. That whether basketball, softball, baseball, etc. Hockey, etc. But you see things like tennis or golf that have a professional class and an ability to support itself and be ongoing in a way that team sports don't seem to have been able to do that. I don't know what the reason is. I'm not suggesting that I know it all, but I do think I think I would imagine that most people involved in the PWHL or women's professional hockey believe this as well, that like there is an endpoint where that is possible. What does it take? What needs to happen to make that happen?
Huge investments, big sponsorship money. I mean, you look at like LPGA, you look at tennis, you've got some major sponsors involved. I think that's really like a big piece right now, is bringing in like the right partners with the right dollars. And I think that's like, one piece of the equation. The other piece, in which you're kind of, seeing that's there, it's just sustaining it over time or for every single game, is the fans, the ticket sales. I mean, you just saw in Minnesota, 13,000 fans there.
Oh,
I mean,
amazing.
The demand is there. It's just like, how do we sustain that for every single game? And you see the NWSL doing a really good job with that in like some of their markets. They're really engaging with the community. And those are like pieces that it's going to happen. It does take time. Like, unfortunately, we're in a place now where there's a really good base of investment. Like, you now have a staff where, I've been in a couple other leagues, and it's no knock to kind of those leagues at all, but, you had a very lean staff just because of, you couldn't pay to have a staff of like 15 people. And now we have a staff of like 15 people, at each team. And then there's, a massive front office too. So anyways, I'm now going all over the place here, but those are
no. But I mean, I think it makes we should mention as well. I mean, there is I don't know, a billionaire of sorts who's involved here. Mark Walter is Guggenheim Partners. They own the Dodgers and Chelsea in England. Like they're the money behind the PWHL, at least currently. I mean, I assume that their goal is to ultimately make something that they can sell and get other people invest in. But does it feel like that there's more money in it right now, that there's an investment in the league that hadn't been in other leagues?
Yeah, for sure. I think to start, and then the ultimate goal would be, and I'm just speaking from my side of it. What I would think the ultimate goal would be, right, would be to sell off your team so you have individual ownership. So you have not just one Mark Walter, you have 35 Mark Walter.
Right.
And if we ever sell this show, if this podcast becomes, truly, we can get an all Jewish hockey team together, all of you guys in the league will barnstorm. We'll have the Menschwarmers logo on it. We can bankroll this if this show ever really takes off.
Great.
I want to get back to that a little bit. Talked about the league. We'll get back to it. Tell us a little bit about young Kaleigh. You are Jewish. You're one of the handful of Jewish players in the league. We are a Canadian show. You are from the Vancouver area, is my understanding. What was your upbringing like? Did you have, were you Jewish growing up? Were you a little more observant? Like, what was that like for you as a kid?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Jewish family. Mom's side's Jewish, father side as well, and grew up in Vancouver with my close family in the area, but grew up very much in sports right away from a young age. And I had participated I went to Jewish preschool, and we definitely had it growing up. We did Shabbat, like we did all.
Yeah.
We did observe, and but
we're not judging, by the way. This is all.
No, I know this, but I just got to a point where we celebrated all holidays, like absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Grew up with that as a foundation, like very much my mom instilling that from a very young age. But I got to a certain age where, and it was early on for me because I'm the youngest of three, where it was funny, like Friday. We'd be getting together with like our cousins and everyone. Mm-hmm. And slowly, as we got more into sports and in particular hockey, it was like, oh, Kaleigh has to miss Friday dinner. She's, off at a hockey game. And then it was like every holiday started to creep in where like my grandmother, like Bubby, my dad's mom, she'd be like, well, why are the kids missing? Why are they missing these things to go to hockey? Like, she just didn't really understand.
I think if you were missing it to go to medical school, she would have been thrilled.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story because my oldest brother, Jesse, is 5 years older than me. And we have a middle brother, Casey. And, they both played too. And it wasn't until Jesse committed to go to Brown University where my grandmother was like, oh, so this is why I've been playing.
This hockey thing's not so bad. Yeah. Getting into an Ivy League school.
And it was my dad. Like my dad was super into sports, and like that was his thing. And his parents basically, he tried to live out the dream of playing golf, and got to a point where his parents were like, "Okay, you got to give up the dream because only like one person is going to make it." Type deal back then. One person in Canada got a scholarship to the US. That they were like, you got to move on. First of all, you need to get your education and like go to law school, and naturally, became a lawyer and then a judge. But
oh, cool.
That's very, it's really funny the thing about Friday night dinners and missing them for hockey. If there's such a thing as a Canadian Jewish identity, I feel like that's very central to it. Like the same thing happens in my family, where one of my nephews is playing like AA, and it's like, well, why does he have to? Why is his skating time this? Don't they know that there are Jews on the team? It's very. I think this is a conversation that's happened within Jewish households across the country, maybe in the States as well, but probably that's a uniquely Canadian thing. I feel like, and also like Friday night is like a real hockey night. Like I guess they play like high school football games that day as well, and I'm sure there's other high school sports that go on or whatever in the States, but like. Hockey games are on Friday night. Like that's a pretty common thing, I think, across Canada.
And so then you grew up, you came to Boston. Now, when you watch, young people coming up, does it matter to you? And this is boys or girls, and does it matter to you that they're Jewish? Like, do you look out for Jewish players, or even in your league now? Do you know who's Jewish?
It's not really till recently where I started to, I don't know, you start to be like, oh, well, that for sure. Like you'll watch sports, or, you'll watch college sports and be like, oh, that's for sure a Jew. And like it's a funny joke, like in my family, like because we were always the token Jew, really. Like,
absolutely.
And it was just, and especially hockey and women's hockey too. It was, I feel like even like just a much smaller community. And when I went to BU, it was more prevalent for sure. And just because it was nicknamed BJU, like there's a ton of Jews that go to BU. Yeah. And then, so as I got older, it's definitely become more of a thing, but like not, or just, kind of talking about it. But when I was like, younger now, I guess my mom will say it. She'll be like, oh, did you see the hat player? Blah, blah, blah. Like, oh, he's a Jewish kid. I was like, oh, that's like.
Well, I hope this appearance on our podcast or talking about it publicly, you hopefully will have some fans come up to you and say, oh, I heard you're Jewish, and I'm Jewish too.
Yeah, I think too. One thing I was just thinking of that you just remind me of was when I was in college, I got a letter to the house that was for like the Jewish All-American team for NCAA or something, and I was reading this letter, and I was like, I didn't even know what it was at first. And I opened it up and I was like, oh, All-American. That's kind of cool. And then I looked and it was like the Jewish All-American team. I was like, even better.
So for you, is that your Hogwarts letter?
Yeah, I guess
so. Going back to the PWHL, I just wanted to ask you quick, this is sort of, at least for a lot of hockey players of your generation, what is finally a summit of all of them after, a lot of years playing in a lot of different places. Like, you play every day with Hillary Knight, who's, a living legend. And, is seeing all of the best players in the world finally in one place? Like, is that, does it feel triumphant in a way?
Yeah, it does a little bit. Like, I kind of have to very much at the beginning kind of everything. Like when training camp started and you were trying to see how all the different teams and rosters were forming, and you would see, the big names, and then you would see other players that I've been playing with for, you just start to see a mix, and then you'd see some Euros come in, and you definitely need to grow kind of that European, you hope that they're going to start to trickle over too with kind of the growth of everything, which I think naturally it's going to happen. But like it's been a long road to kind of get to this point. I mean, there has been times where I in the beginning years of the PHF that was formerly the NWHL, Hillary and all those other players did play in the league. So there has been a point where we have all played together in some way, but now this is like very much the only place to play. You can still play overseas for sure in the other leagues, but this is really the best place to play. So I think in that way, there's a couple of moments where I'm kind of like, this is pretty cool and unique to be a part of.
Do you guys internally have a way to refer to your team in any way aside from PWHL Boston? Because I feel like there's got to be, it's like when the Commanders were just the Washington football team. It's like you need something to hold on to here. Even like sports teams, soccer teams that are like we've like Toronto FC, like they have a nickname, like they're called the Reds or whatever. Like even if it's not official, do you guys have a name or is it coming? I feel like that's something you all should be brainstorming on.
Yeah, the league trademarked a couple of names, like we're each team, and so ours was trademarked Wicked, and so we just call like our team Wicked. So
that's fun. That's fun. That's got some Boston
like PWHL Boston, but. Yes,
the Boston Wicked, and there's going to be I think there's going to be a Wicked musical film coming out at some point soon. So it's good crossover. Like it's just good. Search engine optimization or whatever. Like get the name.
I don't know. We'll see.
I like it. Anyways, Kaleigh, thanks so much for joining us. Good luck with this season and good luck on the ice.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Big thanks to Kaleigh Fratkin for that enlightening and interesting interview. It's always cool to talk to somebody who, is part of a new thing. It's very exciting. And it was cool to see her. Before we go, I'd just like to take a moment to give a big shout out to our producer, Michael, who, the day before recording this, is a very, very special birthday boy.
Yeah, that's right. Happy birthday, Michael. He's bringing us into a year for all of us of turning 35, which seems daunting. But
it's great. What is there? You're high -1.
Yeah, that's true. Double high next year. It's a big one.
Yeah, double high next year. Very big.
Yeah, I want to shout out something which I've been consuming over the last few weeks, which it has a connection to sports, which is very tangential. So something that you would usually go off on. But I've been listening to the Barbra Streisand memoir in audiobook form, and she was in a sports movie. I've never seen it, but it was called The Main Event, where she manages boxer Ryan O'Neal. That's what the movie's about. She doesn't have that much to say about it in the book, which is surprising because she has hours and hours of things to say about other things. So yeah, if Yentl had a basketball, maybe she too could have, gotten at some of her first session.
Maybe she wouldn't have had to dress as boy to go to yeshiva.
Yeah, she could have just played ball in 19th century Poland.
There's two ways out of the shtetl, yeshiva and ball.
And ball. This is quite the tangent. But big recommend. If anyone is thinking about listening to the Barbra Streisand audiobook and is also tuned into minute 40 of this podcast, I definitely recommend it. Anyways, as always, we're brought to you by the Canadian Jewish News. You can you should respond to the Canadian Jewish News's fundraising emails and whatnot, and subscribe and give them money. It's a good organization for a good cause.
Absolutely.
More than ever, Jews need to be putting their money where their mouth is and supporting great journalistic organizations, which is only made possible by listeners like you. And you get all kinds of stuff like the print issues of the newspaper.
Very, very curious. I'm just, talking about Yentl, does she talk about Amy Irving at all? And like,
she does, yeah. Again, like every person she's ever met in her life basically gets talked about.
Yeah.
So we can chat about that off mic, or if the CJN wants to bring me on to another podcast to just talk about, we could fill 40 hours talking about the Barbra Streisand memoir.
That'd be a great idea for a podcast. It's just a chapter by chapter
just chapter by chapter
of Babs. If
my naming is Barbara. Yeah,
exactly. My Barbra Streisand exposure. My grandmother, she's not around anymore, but when I was a kid, she's a Holocaust survivor, came to America, came to Canada. She had a Barbra Streisand videotape that was like always like fresh watched. Was like the run that was like right in and out, and it was just like, if
you wanted to watch a video, you had to find a space for the My Name is Barbara TV special that was on Betamax.
Exactly, that was just there all the time. Yes, it was like the default in was Barbra Streisand VHS live concert.
That's great. She's led an amazing career. Anyways, as always, we're brought to you by the Canadian Jewish News. As I mentioned, follow us on Twitter at Menschwarmers, where you can get updates about the IWHF and retweet votes for Zach Hyman for the All-Star game. And thanks for listening.
And your best Brooklyn Chabad tunnel jokes.
Yeah, that's right. We got them all. See you next time. Thanks for listening.